In this video, I'm going to show you my Diablo 4 Barbarian PvP build. This build is very good and it is a frost build, and I'll explain to you exactly what that means in a second. Now this can be used for Season 1. This is a Season 1 build, but I'm using parts from the Season 0 essentially because I don't have one of these pieces in Season 1 just yet. So I'll cross over to Season 1 for some of the stuff, but right now we're in the internal before the season came out. So first of all, let's go over the skills, and then we'll go over the gear and all the other good stuff. So for this build, we are doing a Lunging Strikes main attack. This is all we're going to be spamming. This is a Stunlock Frost spam build. 5 into that, 1 into Enhanced Lunging Strikes. And Combat Lunging Strike is very important because we get Berserking for 1.5 seconds with critical strikes. And essentially, we're Berserking all the time, 100% of the time when we're hitting enemies. We don't have anything into any of this. We go down here, we have Ground Stomp. This is to stun the enemy. We also have 3 points into this to give us more life. We also have Rallying Cry for our Unstoppable. So this gives us Unstoppable so we can't get CC'd. It also gives us movement speed, which is very good, and 40% generation. Now we don't really need any more resource generation because we're not actually using resource generation in this build, but it does come in handy for one of the attributes we have, whatever they're called, aspects, sorry. And then we have Enhanced Rallying Cry. We have Iron Skin. This is for the barrier. And then we also get Enhanced Iron Skin. And this one, while you have Iron Skin active, you heal for 10% of your barrier's original amount. We have 2 points into Outburst. We have 2 points into Tough as Nails. 1 point into Challenging Shout. 1 point into this one. 1 point into this one. We go down here. We have 1 point into Warcry. We have Warcry grants Berserking. Even though we're getting Berserking from critical hits, this is still good because we want to pop that Berserk even before we go into a battle. And then we get a little bit of Fortify from it. 3 points into Booming Voice to give us our effects a little bit longer. And the reason why is because we use Raid Leader. This is quite OP. Essentially, when you use your shouts, you heal allies for 3% of their maximum life per second. Now, you count as an ally, so it actually heals you as well when you use your shouts. We want gain 10% damage reduction while berserking. And then we want these 3 maxed out. Okay. I have 1 point into Hamstring. And I have 1 point into Cut to the Bone, but that's on a piece of gear. You don't actually need that. That's not needed. 3 points into Thick Skin. Now down here, this is where you kind of want to pay attention here. We have 3 points into Duelist. This is because we want attack speed. We want as much attack speed as we can while using one-hand weapons. And then also down here, while using bludgeoning weapons, deal 15% increased damage. So we're using one-handed bludgeoning maces. And then this one is very, very important. This is a must-have for this build. If you don't have this, it's not really going to work. Skills using bludgeoning weapons have a 30% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. Okay, so this is very good because I'll show you what we're using in a second. And then we have this here, which is more damage. 60%. I did not know that. So that's actually been put up. Must have been in a patch recently. 60% more damage with Berserking. So that's actually insane. We'll go to the Paragon in a second, but now let's look at my gear. All right. So as you can see, we are using 2 bludgeoning maces, dual wielding maces. We need that for this build. But let's start from the top. The headpiece. We have maximum life. It's quite low. I want to put that up a bit, but we have basic skill attack speed. We have damage while berserking, and then 60 dexterity. And we have imprinted basic skill grants 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds. So I'll show you what that looks like. So if you actually look here, while I'm spamming my attacks, there's this little box down here. So that's the basic skill damage reduction. See? So we straight up, as long as we're spamming that, we get a straight up 20% reduction just from that alone. All right, so pay attention to this because something is bugged with this one. So you are not going to want to have this imprinted. First of all, we get 11% damage increase. We get 9% in control impaired duration reduction. I would rather have just a straight damage reduction on that, but that's okay. Damage with dual wielding weapons is 25% more. And then 900 health. maximum health. Now, damaging an elite enemy grants you barrier absorption up to 2,700. This doesn't actually work for PvP. I need to change this out. So everyone thought that an elite PvP enemy was an elite. Now, this is actually bugged, so they're not classed as elites at the moment. I don't know if they've fixed it, but if the barrier doesn't work, well, that's why. A PvP enemy is not classed as an elite right now. They might fix it in the future. So this is currently bugged. Now, this is where this build really comes into play. Now, this drops in Frost dungeons, Nightmare dungeons. I've had it, I think, 4 times in Frost dungeons, okay? Now, apparently it drops in any dungeon, but I've only got it from Frost dungeons, which would make sense because it's called the Frostburn. So this is where we can actually freeze enemies. So we get a critical strike chance, standard stuff. We get 6% cold damage. Doesn't really matter too much for this. We get a 12% freeze duration, which does help. We get up to 5% chance to restore primary resource. Does not matter for this, actually. But we get lucky hit. Up to 24% chance to freeze enemies for 2 seconds. So if we have freeze enemies for 2 seconds, and we have that with our ability that stuns enemies, you're literally CCing your enemy most of the time. So that is why this is the piece you need. I don't have it in season 1 yet because I haven't tried to get it, but this is the piece that you need. Next, we have max health, total armor, thorns, and strength. And then this one is very good for PvP. I'm not really too sure why not many people use it. You gain 4% increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any type of damage, stacking up to 24%. So this will increase your armor by 24%. When you are doing your damage, dealing any form of damage. This is just basic stuff here on the boots. All stats, dex, strength, berserking duration. You could probably change out berserking duration. You don't need it. Direct damage against bleeding enemies has up to a 27% chance to stun them. So check this out, right? We now have Frost, 24% chance to freeze people. When our enemies are bleeding, and we are going to make our enemies bleed, I'll show you how in a second, we then have a 20% chance to stun them for 2 seconds, damage to bleeding, and then we also have in our stats here, in our skills, we have 30% chance to stun enemies as well. So the CC on this build is just insane. Now on here, we have strength, damage to injured, basic skill damage, which is important, and then damage to bleeding enemies. We need basic skill damage. And then skills deal up to 35% increased damage based on your available resource. So that is this here. Sorry. That's this here. Your Fury is your resource. When that's maxed out, you get a 34% increased damage. And that maxes out pretty fast because we generate Fury with that and we don't use it. This one we have, all the gems, by the way, are basic skill damage gems. We have strength, damage to close, damage while berserking, critical strike, and then gain 1,900 thorns while berserking. This is not needed. I like it. You could change that out to something else. It's not necessarily really needed for this build. It's good, but it's not needed. 78 strength, damage while berserking, damage to slow, basic skill damage again, and then distant enemies have a chance to be stunned. That doesn't really matter. But what matters is you deal 13% increased damage to stunned enemies. Now this is where it kind of shines a little bit. We have strength, damage to close, damage while berserking, basic skill damage. We have basic skills gain 52% attack speed. So if you guys remember from my last video, the attack speed, that's what we are basically doing with this. This is just maximum life, damage to slow, damage to close, vulnerable damage, deal 20% increased damage while you have active barrier. Now the reason I had this on was to pair with this, but it doesn't essentially, this one doesn't work. However, you do get a barrier when you do your iron shout down here, your iron skin, so you could potentially want to leave that one on. This one, maximum life, damage to stun, berserking, now, damage to close. Now, whenever you deal direct damage while berserking, inflict 20% of your base damage as bleeding. So, whenever we hit our enemy, even though when our thorns make them bleed as well, when they hit us, when we hit them, we deal 20% damage as bleeding, and then that activates our direct damage against bleeding enemies, has a chance to stun. On the amulet, we have thorns, cooldown reduction, 1 cut to the bone, and strike chance against injured. This amulet needs to be changed. It's not optimized, but that's what I'm running. And you have 20% increased CC duration, but this is where this one comes into play. While enemies are unstoppable, you deal 50% more damage to those enemies. Okay, So that's the gear. This gear isn't very optimized, but the most important piece with this gear is going to be the freeze. Now, I will say that this obviously doesn't have the Malignant hearts on them. I will show you some Malignant hearts that you could use in a second. I'll log into my other character. Expertise. Increased damage to vulnerable. Yes, so if we have increased damage to vulnerable, and then we use one-hand maces, increased damage to stun, and then double again using 2 maces. Paragon board. It's pretty basic. It's not really that optimized. Basically have health here. We have a bit of health here and some damage. We are running the... is this the exploit? Yeah, exploit glyph. Some more kind of damage here. And some armor. So you can just go through and find the board by checking that out. Well, it's a standard board. We go up to here. We have a little bit of health over here. We have the this glyph here, so damage to bleeding and damage to reduction. This has not been upgraded at all. We have damage while berserking. This is something you're going to need. We also have damage to bleeding down here. We have damage while berserking. This is where this is why I use this one. The Carnage node is while berserking, critical strikes increase your attack speed by 2%. Up to 8%. So this is all about attack speed, damage while berserking. Not sure if I said that. So then some damage reduction stuff here. And that's really the Paragon board. This is not a fully optimized build, but I'm just showing you how this, how good this is essentially because we are just constantly CCing our enemy. I've had enemies because if you compare this to Hammer of the Ancients kills things much quicker. This kills things much slower, but we have much more speed. So essentially, that makes up for that. But we have so much CC where I've had players been CC'd from when I've hit them to when they've died. And it's taken me a long time to kill them sometimes. I've taken on level 100 Barbarians, Druids as a 81. And I've just constantly stunned them and they can't move. It annoys them. So this is a very, people call this a trash build, no skill build, whatever. I don't care. I know it's no skills, but this is what's been working very well. You're just constantly CCing the enemy and you have insane amounts of speed. That's the point. And you also get some more speed. But I'll show you my Malignant Hearts real quick that you can combine with this. All right, guys. So I'm in my Season 1 character with Malignant Hearts. And I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can. So you see this glove here, we have attack speed. I'm going to take this off because we're not going to be using this glove. We are obviously going to have our frost glove, okay? That's what you're going to have for this because this is a frost build. If we go down to my stats, you'll see that my attack speed is below, is 9%, okay? Now, you see this heart right here, this Malignant Heart, which it says your skills have a 34% chance to knock down enemies when your attack speed is higher than 20%. So this needs to be higher than 20%. So that's why I have this glove on because it gets me over that 20%. However, we're not going to have this glove. So you're not going to be over 20%. But what you could potentially do is you want to then use the this heart, cycle through Malignant bonus every 20 kills. So what you do in the PvP zone is you get 20 kills and then you get Vicious, which you gain 24% attack speed. And you'll get a little symbol that shows you that you're on that. Then you would get back over the 24%. So as long as you're on that rotation, on that attack speed, because that counts towards the attack speed, it'll show up in the stats, then this will come into play. So then you're knocking down enemies, you're stunning enemies, and you're freezing enemies. You're using all of this CC. It's nuts. And then it would work. However, if you're not going to use this heart, and you're not going to use the attack speed, then this is going to be useless. This heart... Don't worry about the stats of the ring or anything. This heart is going to be useless because you're not going to get that attack speed bonus, okay? If that makes sense. Because we're not going to have a speed glove. We're going to have the frost glove. If you have any questions below about that, just let me know. I know it could be potentially confusing. Next one. Don't worry about this amulet. It's not for the build. Like I said, this is just for the hearts. The deal 4,000 damage to surrounding enemies whenever a crowd control effect is removed from you. This is very good because there's actually, especially sorcerers, they put down like ice on the ground and ice rain and all this kind of stuff, right? It actually I don't know if it's bugged, but it counts as the crowd control being removed from you, even though it potentially isn't a crowd control. So the fire just, it's like keeps going like boom, 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 and you can kill enemies just with that alone. So that's the Malignant Heart I would use for this as well. But if you're confused about the speed stuff, go look back at my last video where I do a full maximized attack speed video and you'll understand. But it doesn't work when we're using the Frost Glove, because I use the Frost Glove to get my attack speed over 20%. So I'm constantly using this heart. But if you can't get your attack speed over the 20%, use this instead, where you gain 24% attack speed. And then that will add that. Then that will go to your whatever you have here as well, and then you'll also get this. Then that will work. All right, guys. Hopefully you understand that build. If you have any questions, let me know below. I just had to show my off-season character and my season 1 because in season 1 I don't have that Frost Glove yet because I haven't actually tried to get it. But you can get it in Frost Dungeons. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.